And a very happy Friday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wags in Culver City.
John, here is a number that may shock you. It may not, but it did shock me. Last year, just in the city of Los Angeles, over 17,000 fires were started by the homeless.
Wait a minute. Repeat that number back to me.
17,000 homeless fires where fire department had come out and put it out in 1 year.
You know why I think they're doing that?
Why's that?
I think it helps the homeless men get intimate with homeless women. Because if there's anything that turns a woman on, it's a man who can harness the power of fire.
If you do the math on 17,000 fires started in 2024, that is about 43 to 45 a day. Wasn't it just like 5 years ago, Crowley said it was 16 a day?
I'll tell you, if you drive all over Southern California and you hop from freeway to freeway to freeway to freeway, you will see homeless fires just about every single day.
It is a massive liability, and it's only a matter of time before we get to the cause of one of these massive fires that burnt down the entire city, and there's going to be hell to pay.
What is the deal with meth that makes them want to light fires?
Well, there's two things. One, you need to start fires to heat up the meth. You have to smoke it. You have to melt it inside the pipe. But also, once you're high on meth, you go crazy. It's everyone talks about the mental illness that is on our streets. So much mental illness is actually caused by prolonged meth usage. It destroys your brain and makes you a paranoid, crazy person that thinks everyone's out to get you, so I got to light everyone on fire.
I get that, but why can't the paranoia result in some kind of productive obsessive-compulsive disorder where instead of starting fires, they spend their time, I don't know, reorganizing all of their stolen bicycles?
Oh, they do that too. You want to look at a crafty meth head? They know every single piece of a bicycle and how to take one apart and put it back together, and they'll do it over and over and over again. Another weird one, meth heads love digging holes.
But don't you worry about any of this, because the problem will be going away now that Barbara Ferrer is in charge of harm reduction.
Next slide.
Do you know how much of that money comes from state and federal grants?
If these people only knew who was getting the money.
There needs to be a massive audit, and I'm doubtful we'll get one in the state right now, but in the federal government, all the money that is being funneled to the Department of Public Health, because Barbara Ferrer gets grants for nonsensical insanity all the time.
Yeah.
If you were to do a flow chart of all of the Christmas gifts that you bought your friends and relatives, virtually all of the arrows would be pointed to Jeff Bezos. If you were to do a flow chart of all of the money that gets spent on bums and drug use and the like, I wonder how many of those arrows would be pointed at the fake doctor.
She is the source and the root of all evil in Los Angeles County.
No, thank you.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. As we told you yesterday, the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, has a new podcast. And in this podcast, he's doing sit-down interviews with conservative national influencers where he talks about the issues of the day. The first one dropped yesterday, and it involved an interview with Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. Among many of the truth bombs that Gavin Newsom dropped during this podcast was that he is uncomfortable with biological men competing in women's sports. The statement went all over the place. They were talking about it on the cable news channels. It was all over social media. And, of course, they heard about it in Sacramento.
You know what Gavin realized? He wasn't getting any traction with that Marshawn podcast. One episode with a conservative influencer, and the whole country is talking about him. 6 months of Marshawn, only we were talking about him.
A star is born. I just don't know if he's Bradley Cooper or Lady Gaga.
Hagenberger.
Now, in Sacramento, the Democrats in the state legislature who are used to Gavin Newsom being reliably liberal on every subject under the sun, were shocked and appalled when they found out that he does not believe that biological men should play in women's sports. And Randy, they expressed themselves all over social media.
Let's start with the California Legislative LGBTQ caucus. I guess there's no IA plus caucus. Sometimes Gavin Newsom goes for the profile and courage, sometimes not. We woke up profoundly sickened and frustrated by these remarks. All students deserve the academic and health benefits of sports activity, and until Donald Trump began obsessing about it, playing on a team consistent with one's gender has not been a problem since the standard was passed in 2013. You also saw Alex Lee from the Assembly. WTF, trans people and LGBTQ plus people are under attack. We don't need our gov caving to conservative talking points that further hurt and scapegoat 1% of the population. Charlotte Clymer. Gavin Newsom knows the trans youth in sports issue is a ridiculous right-wing propaganda effort. He knows this is powered by anti-trans hatred, not reason. And yet, he still chose to endorse attacks on trans youth to bolster his national profile for a 2028 presidential run. Caroline Menvar, we can't flip the script using Republican talking points. Our job is to protect all Californians, not single out vulnerable communities because you want to increase your podcast subscribers. And here's State Senator Sasha Renee Perez, shocked Governor Newsom would join in this obsession with trans women athletes that represent 10 of 510,000 college athletes in the USA. Republican solutions to regulate this, including having coaches monitor children's menstrual cycles or performing genital exams. Stay away from our kids.
Whoa. They are really digging in their heels to protect biological men from participating in women's sports. And Randy, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I did that once myself.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I got a call from a 714 number that I didn't recognize, and I stupidly answered the phone. And it was someone from Cal State Fullerton, which is my alma mater.
Go Titans.
And they were asking me for money, as if I would ever write them a check. And when they were asking me for money, they said, now listen, we can sweeten the pot here if that's what it takes. How about tickets to go see the Lady Titans play basketball? I guess they thought because of the whole Caitlin Clark thing that everyone was interested in girls basketball. So I said, well, that's an interesting proposition there. How many transgendered athletes are on the team? And the woman just went silent. And I said, well, are you going to answer my question? How many transgendered athletes are on the team? And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, if I'm going to go to one of those games, there has to be at least 2 or 3 or enough to make it interesting. And they didn't get any money out of me. But this is what's going on in Sacramento right now. The Democrats in the legislature are very angry with Gavin Newsom over doing this. And clearly, he didn't tip his hand to them before he did it. He just went on the podcast and surprised them all.
I think this was intentional.
I think he purposely rattled the cage. He had to have known what kind of response this was going to be.
He wanted to separate himself from the pack, and he knows that there are a lot of policies that are wildly unpopular with the vast majority of people in this country. And so what better way to separate yourself from all of that than by chumming it up with Charlie?
And dropping that, which went off like the Hindenburg for those people. And all of this leads to the question, if Gavin Newsom is willing to rattle the cage and upset them to this degree on that subject, was this a one-off, or is this what he's going to do on this podcast, where he's going to invite Michael Savage or some other conservative influencer on the program, and he is going to take a position on an issue that angers the left and pleases the right? It could be some kind of coordinated campaign to position himself as a moderate Democrat, as a blue dog Democrat, as someone who will take the party in the direction of Bill Clinton and away from Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and so many members of the Democratic caucus in Congress.
I do love this strategy because Gavin Newsom firmly believes what he says matters, not his performance for running the state of California.
Yeah, because he didn't take a position on any legislation that would have advanced what he was advocating for. He just went on a podcast and said it.
Broing it out.
And every cycle, it seems like you have a candidate that gets in the primary that runs against the position of the party or the ideology of the party. On the Republican side of the aisle, John McCain did that. John McCain would constantly question Republican orthodoxy and run in, what did he run in, 2000 and then again in 2008. And he won the nomination doing that in 2008. But John Huntsman did that and other candidates. Other candidates, I think this last time it was Asa Hutchinson or Asa Hutchinson. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
I'd go Asa.
Asa, that works for me. He's what, the governor of Arkansas?
Yeah, or he was.
Yes. Then he got kicked out on his Asa.
Now it's Huckabee.
That's right. The daughter, not the grandfather. He's playing the guitar somewhere. Actually, I think he's the ambassador to Israel now. That's Ambassador Huckabee to you. But the Democrats do the same thing. Joe Lieberman ran against Democratic Party orthodoxy. Certainly Andrew Yang, who generated a lot of attention when he was a candidate in the Democratic primary, he did the same thing. Tulsi Gabbard, this last time around, ran as a critic of the Democratic Party. She's now in Donald Trump's cabinet. But Gavin Newsom could be that candidate. Gavin Newsom could go the way of Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Lieberman and Andrew Yang. And if the individuals who vote in Democratic primaries are upset with the direction of their party, that's one option that they could take. They could also take another candidate who is critical of the party for not fighting enough, where you could end up with a Jasmine Crockett type of candidate if they decide to go in the opposite direction. But Gavin Newsom is putting all of his chips on the Democratic Party wanting to moderate their image and moderate their position on any number of hot-button social issues. And he believes if he markets himself as a moderate Democratic candidate, that could lead him to the promised land. Now, what's interesting is that Gavin Newsom still has 2 more years as governor of California. And the state legislature is as left-wing as ever. If he is really going to position himself as a conservative Democrat, he's going to veto 95% of the stuff that they send him, which is going to ruin his relationship with the state legislature.
You don't need them anymore.
They're used to him signing everything they send him, or at least telling them ahead of time, don't send me this because I'll veto it. So they just take a pass and they decide they're going to study it for a year or two. So they spare themselves the embarrassment.
Hey, maybe the next podcast will go off on Rick Chavez Burr.
Oh, I'd love to see that. But you could finally see an adversarial relationship between the state legislature and Gavin Newsom, which is exactly what this state needs. But Gavin Newsom, if he continues to fight with them, risks upsetting the left wing of the Democratic Party. And typically, you don't win a Democratic primary unless you get liberal voters solidly behind you. That's the way it worked for him for governor. That's the way it works for most Democratic candidates for president, with a few exceptions like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was an interesting case because while he branded himself as a moderate Democrat and a blue dog Democrat, he walked a tightrope where he didn't really offend the liberals. Liberal voters back then still had a very positive attitude towards Bill Clinton. He found a way to do it without sticking a finger in their eye. Whether or not taking the position that Gavin has taken on transgendered athletes is sticking his finger in their eye, I'm not sure. And that's the question we have for you right now at 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. If Gavin Newsom sticks to his position that biological men should not participate in women's sports, Do you think that's a deal breaker with liberal Democrats? Do you think that is one bridge too far for them when in a Democratic primary they will have many options from many candidates who probably don't feel that way? Do you think Gavin Newsom just ruined his relationship with liberal Democrats? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the weekend quickly approaching, if you have a long drive later on today, let's say you're going to Arizona to watch some spring training baseball, and you want to listen to us, that is easy to do.
Maybe you want to catch up on all of Gavin Newsom's shenanigans over the years. Go to KBC.com, click on podcasts.
We've leaned in.
Go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes.
Burger.
Do a Google on the YouTube to get that handy-dandy app.
I mean, this is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard.
Search KBC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store.
Google it.
It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station.
So you get the thrust.
And download all the podcasts. You can listen to them anywhere in the world.
And increasingly across the globe.
Gavin Newsom says that biological men should not participate in women's sports. Do you think that's a deal breaker with the left wing of the Democratic Party? Members of the legislature, Democratic members of the legislature, have been criticizing the governor all over social media. Do you think they're going to Splitsville for good? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222. Gavin Newsom, on a podcast with Charlie Kirk, said that biological men should not be competing in women's sports, and the left wing of the Democratic Party went nuts. Do you think that relationship is damaged? Let's go to Mike in Woodland Hills. Mike, hello.
Hey, guys. Thank God it's Friday. Thanks for taking the call. I think, the question that you asked when you went to break was, do I think it's Splitsville? I think it's an interesting question because his counterparts were voted in office by a certain constituents of people, and those people, those voting populace here in California, they truly do believe that. They believe that there is no difference between a biological male and a biological female both competing in a highly competitive sport, and that female has the same advantages of that male. Now, it's crazy, but that's what they believe. Or even if they don't believe it, that's what their voting populace believes in. So they've got to pander to that. I think that Newsom, when he saw the numbers in this election, it was very concerning. There's a lot of counties that were traditionally Democratic that flipped, and I think that he has federal, national aspirations to run for president, and I think he sees the writing on the wall. I think he believes it's ultimately an unpopular position. So he's trying to do what he can, but I think his other counterparts, I think they're going to hold fast and continue to believe that ideology because California, it's just we're making progress. Those numbers are looking good, but we're not there yet. I think what's really unfortunate, and I'll end with this, is that you and I are even having to have a conversation about this subject. It's insane to me that we as a people have gone so far to believe that this is sane, that it's totally fine, that it's totally cool just to let a man walk into a woman's restroom and it's all good. It's not all good. Anyway, what is all good is that happy hour I'm about to get to. So thanks, guys, and have a great weekend.
Well, don't make us jealous. We still got to do this for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Oh, wait, then I have another show. I can't start drinking until 6.
You know what's funny? If you were a fan of the NBA back in, this would be the late 80s, early 90s. There was a player on the Charlotte Hornets by the name of Larry Johnson. And he was the star player at the time for the team. And he endorsed some tennis shoe that he was on television pitching. And the whole point of those ads was that he would play pickup basketball at the park against another group of guys, and he'd say, all right, can my grandma join my team? And the other guys go, oh, yeah, of course. Your grandma can play on your team. Sure, no problem. And the grandma was Larry Johnson dressed like an old lady. And the grandma would be slam dunking in people's faces and posting up near the basket and just running up the score on this team of poor guys down at the park. And it was a gag, but that was how they sold the shoes. It was just like such a ridiculous sort of thing that they thought it was a joke that people would enjoy, and it worked. I mean, that gag lasted a long time, and now it's not a gag, is it?
Well, it's not just that. Wasn't there a movie in the 90s called Juwanna Man about an NBA player that got kicked out of the league, and so he dressed up as a woman?
That sounds like one of those movies they'd show on an airplane. Let's go to Patrick in the City of Industry. Patrick, hello.
Hey, John. Hey, Randy. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
So it's a pretty funny thing that Trump said you're not going to get any federal funding if you don't get these men out of women's sports. And then all of a sudden, Gavin's like, I'm kind of against men and women's sports because he's broke and he's drove our state into a big hole and he can't afford not to get the funding. So it's, again, political expediency, and it's a popular side of the opinion. 80-90% of the populace doesn't believe that men should be in women's sports, so it's kind of a no-brainer. But as far as him losing the left, I don't know. We'll see. I think Shapiro and a couple more mainstream people like that are going to outshine him as far as that goes. And this is all going to be forgotten in 2 weeks because that's how the mind is. Oh, it's a soundbite. That's it. It's over. It's gone. It's done.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Allison in Sherman Oaks. Allison, hello.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. I think it depends on who he is running against as president. If he's running against Tampon Tim, he may get some of the Democrats who feel that this is a ridiculous issue. If he's running against a Josh Shapiro, he's going to lose, hopefully. I think his position, he's such a flip-flopper that what he said that Charlie Kirk could be changed if he ends up having AOC come in next week. So to me, he is so irrelevant, but he's scary because like a slick Willie, he manages to like Teflon through all this stuff. I am hoping that the fires and the homeless and the look of the beaches and the condition of our soils are used as advertisements against him because I don't know what he has to run on. I mean, he could say whatever he wants at this point. He is a loser.
You're 100% right. With all of the pressing issues that we have in the state, he decides to make national news by talking about men and women's sports.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have in the next 5 years we don't know what's going to go in with the tariffs, but between the shortage of lumber, steel, how the city government is run in terms of permits, this state is a friggin' disaster. I mean, I just left downtown. It's scary. It's disgusting. I just came back from Palm Beach and Miami, and I had to look for garbage on the street. I didn't see a blue tent. I mean, there's something wrong. And now we're going to be paying, just to change the subject for a moment, 10.5% state tax, luxury tax, starting the 1st of April to help the homeless. We haven't helped the homeless, and they don't even know where the billions of dollars have gone. Why are Democrats in this state keep voting for this stuff? I just think if it's in this state, he'll win this state probably as a presidential candidate, but I don't think he can win over the Midwest and some people that have some more sanity than the people in California.
All right. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Rick in Lake Balboa. Rick, hello.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I watched the interview. I heard the statement. He immediately backpedaled. He goes, yes, it's a point of fairness. However, We have to have a humanitarian outlook. I mean, these people are going to be committing suicide, and they'll be under mental stress and blah, blah, blah. So he already started backtracking. But the point I wanted to make, the dude wants to be president. And he sticks his finger up in the wind, and he goes, 80% of the population don't want men in women's sports. All right, I'll go that direction. Now, is the Democratic Party going to have half a brain and come around, or they're going to fall on their sword and go, nope, we're going to stick to our guns? Remains to be seen. Maybe he's banking on them that they'll finally come around and realize if they want to win an election, they have to change their viewpoint.
Wait, so he went back and said if you don't allow men to play women's sports, they'll commit suicide?
Oh yeah, the stress on these poor individuals that this could be dangerous, or it's going to affect their mental health, and we have to keep that aspect in mind.
Oh, come on! I don't believe any biological male wanting to play in women's sports. They're not going to commit suicide if they're not allowed to play. It's not like they all want to be relief pitchers for the Angels.
Oh, I mean, I understand the logic to that, but if I'm not mistaken, that's what he said. That's how he tempered that viewpoint, because he's got to always play both sides of the fence. So whatever's going to accommodate him to be president.
Thank you for the call, sir. I don't think he got that joke.
No, it went right over his head.
You do have to be a longtime Angel fan to get it, though. Or Red Sox fans. I bet you got it, too. It was kind of dark, but it's Friday, so I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to Arizona later today. 800-222-5222, Tempe to be exact. Let's go back to the phones and welcome Ben in Beverly Hills. Ben, hello.
I want to thank you for this great show where it's kind of the best thing you could have in a community where smart people can give feedback. And I think this is a really good audience. You have a lot of good points have been made, but I think there's a new standard. Trump is performing. He's actually getting things done. He's a whirlwind, and it proves when people have a will to do something, they can shut down the border even before they're sworn in. So I think the word salad culture that we hear out of Gavin and Kamala, I think that age is over. I think people now can detect gaslighting. This guy is 100% gaslighting, and he did waffle. He did kind of fall back and say, well, they may commit suicide. So what? Because a group wants to commit suicide if they aren't able to be liquid. Our whole society is supposed to change, build additional bathrooms, facilities, have a major alteration in our legal system with new genders being categorized. If you understand the ramifications of this, of people walking into bathrooms where people of the opposite sex are feeling threatened, uncomfortable, it can actually result in an explosion of lawsuits against the venues. So it would make it a lot more expensive to operate a business or a government institution. A simple thing like a bathroom now becomes the source of millions and millions of potential lawsuits. So I think that we're accepting a lot of things into our culture without really using legislation. And so it's creating a lot of disorder and anger and resentment and pushback.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go back to the phones and welcome Rose in Marina Del Rey. Rose, hello.
Oh, hey, guys. Love your show. First of all, Gavin doesn't do anything unless it benefits Gavin. And also, with regards to trans people in women's sports, he talked like that like he was a spectator, that he was like sitting in the bleachers, and it had nothing to do with the state of California because the law passed in 2014 when he wasn't the governor. Well, he could sign an executive directive and undo the 2014 law. And there's also a law that's going to go to his desk by that guy from out in Imperial County, Eastleigh, that would do away with that law too. So everything is never his fault. And he went on. He brought that guy Charlie Kirk on because Charlie Kirk mobilized millions of young voters to vote for Trump. And so, drip by drip by drip, Newsom is getting his feet into the water. And he would never have brought anybody like Kirk on there unless he knew that Kirk mobilized all those young voters for Trump and wanted them to be mobilized for him in 2028. So thanks for letting me voice my opinion, and be careful driving to Arizona, John.
Well, thank you. I will. I've got this new AI in my car, so I just put it on cruise control, and it doesn't even prevents me from merging into the next lane. It's the greatest thing ever.
Well, I'm a big Red Sox fan, so you better be nice next time I call. Actually, we do have a recent World Series in 2018. I can't recall the last time the Angels had one.
Oh, wow, you're twisting the knife, Rose.
As a Red Sox fan, you may remember this. I think the Angels, if you want to talk about transgendered athletes in sports, I think the Angels were ahead of the curve because I was at a game last season when one of the relief pitchers got taken out after giving up a bunch of runs. And the guy sitting next to me screamed at him, "Nice pitching, Mary."
Listen, you don't want to know what they scream at Fenway Park. That's mild. That's Catholic school screaming. You should hear what is said there.
It sounds like an LA City Council hearing.
Especially when that Asian guy called up. Holy crap. Listen, guys, I love your show. It's fantastic. And thanks for entertaining me and also educating me. But Newsom he's such a snake in the grass. He's a snake. And first of all, may I, before I leave, what governor, especially the size of this state, has time to have his own podcast? Don't you have something else to do? No.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because you've tuned out. That's all. He doesn't even care about us.
What's next? Is Adam Schiff going to have a show on the Food Network? I mean, come on. We're a big state. We've got a lot of needs.